Real estate is about freedom, choice freedom, time freedom, and money freedom, and the impact you can make with that freedom. But it doesn't come without cost. Your freedom takes work. That's why Neil Timmins brings together the tools you need to build your real estate legacy, from tips and tricks to interviews with industry titans. It's all here in one place. Real Grit. Let's get to it.
What if I told you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. That's www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. And I'll see you in the challenge. I've got Jorge Contreras here with me. Jorge, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for the opportunity, Neil.
I'm excited to talk to you, man. This is going to be a fun conversation. Tell me, we all started someplace in real estate. How in the world did you get started in this industry?
So I started buying my first property 10 years ago, a little 3-2 single family home in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, California. And that's really where I got my journey. And then I went into the short-term rentals some years later.
Tell me what, you started with a rental property. What eventually took you into the short-term business versus just building it in the traditional rental world?
Absolutely. So in 2016, one of my good friends, Nicole, told me how she was making 3.5 times what she was making from long-term rentals with short-term rentals. And that, of course, caught my attention. I was like, wow, of course, I want to be able to, exponentially grow my cash flow. And so at the beginning of 2017, I had a couple leases that were ending. And so in March of 2017, I put 4 of my rentals on Airbnb, and I started making 3 times what I was making as well, compared from the long-term rentals. And then I just never went back. Now my entire portfolio is all short-term rentals.
Tell me, when you say 3 times, net or gross or both?
Well, I went from making $6,000 a month with 4 units to $14,000 a month. So
net or gross?
Pretty exponential gross. It was from 6,000 gross to 14,000 gross with the same units, just by switching them from long-term to short-term rentals. And, obviously some of these properties were in pretty good locations. So like some of them were near Disneyland, some of them were near downtown LA, where there's obviously a lot of activity. So 6,000 to 14,000 gross with the same properties.
Tell me, from the outside looking in, everybody scratches their head and goes, dude, the numbers are great, but how do you manage that? How do you talk to these people? How do you price these people? How many cleaners do I have to go through? What happens if? So I guess talk to me about that, about what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of challenges that I experienced at the beginning, especially going through a lot of different cleaners. Like, you could have the most amazing property and the most amazing location. If you have a bad cleaner, it's just like having a bad contractor for any type of, renovation or development. If you have a bad contractor, it's going to be a really bad experience and take longer, cost longer. So I definitely went through a couple people. Probably took me about 3 people until I found somebody good that's been with me now for about 4 years. Same thing with handyman. There's obviously a lot of turnaround. And even then, right, even though to 14, it didn't mean that I had an extra 9,000 of profit, right? Obviously, there was a lot more wear and tear, had to do renovations more frequently. There is a lot more expenses. But what I did is, through all the different trainings I've done over the years, of course, I learned how to build a team and a system. And now it's like an 80 to 85% passive business, right? Not 100%. I still have to get involved from time to time. But in the end, I'm still investing more time, but if I'm making, triple the cash flow, in the end, it's still been worth it for me.
Yeah. How many properties do you have at this point?
Right now we have 18. We have 7 that we own, 8 that we sublease, and 3 that we manage for other people.
Talk to me about sublease. Just explain what that is so that the people understand and understand how you can get into this, I'll call it into this game, right? Without, a whole bunch of money out of your pocket.
So subleasing is a way that you can rent, landlords' properties and get their permission in writing to then launch them as a short-term rentals. And it's good for someone that's just getting started, right? Somebody maybe like yourself or someone that's already seasoned that already owns a ton of rentals. This may not be the best strategy, since a lot of times at a high level, we want that, depreciation and appreciation. But for someone that is just getting started, going from a 9 to 5, who wants to start a side hustle, it's a great way to have more rentals and more cash flow without having to put down payments or closing costs.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right. So let's shift back to the other side of this. Somebody wants to buy a property. How do you end up financing these?
Yeah, I've done a couple different strategies. Every year, a couple years ago, me and my wife, for example, got a new personal residence. And at the time, we didn't have any kids and we didn't need a 5-bedroom house. So we kept like 60% of the home. We did a little bit of house hacking. We did a split home ADU. We put a portion on Airbnb. We lived on the other side and then we lived mortgage payment free, right? And then this year we moved into a new house and now that property became an Airbnb entirely. We plan on doing this like as often as possible, maybe every 1 to 2 years. And this has allowed us to buy properties with owner financing.
Yep.
I've also done like a 10% vacation home. And I've also done some of the DSCR loans as well as like bank statement programs. So it's been everywhere from 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. I've done a couple partnerships. So it's been all over the place for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your team look like? What's the structure look like today in order to support your business?
Yeah. So I have two, essentially my portfolio is split up into essentially into 3. I have some properties with just me and my wife. And then I have 2 business partners where with one of them, we're doing some subleasing, some owning, and then another partner just owning as well. So between the 3 portfolios, I have 2 managers that basically oversee all the operations. And those managers are in direct communication with the cleaners, the maintenance, communication, the neighbors, the cities, anything with permits, just everyone from landscapers, pool maintenance, and they're able to handle a lot of that day-to-day work. So I could just focus on some of the big picture stuff like acquisitions and some of these new developments that we're going into now.
Picking up some new properties.
But having a manager is super important because if you don't have a manager, then you are the manager, right?
You are it. Yep, you're absolutely right. You see, looking back from this point back to where you started, what's been the biggest challenge, the biggest loss, the biggest mistake, the biggest screw up, the biggest learning lesson, perhaps that you've experienced?
I would say one of the biggest mistakes is having the fear of growing the portfolio. I feel like all investors, when you go from one to a second one and a third one, we always think like, oh man, I'm about to get another mortgage. And we always have those fears of what if I can't make the rent? What if it doesn't cover itself? And I feel like that definitely kept me because from 2012 to 2017 or 2016, I didn't buy any properties. And those were, as you and I know, some really great years. But I missed out just because of the fear. That is definitely, of course, like a regret that I have. When it comes to the actual operations, there hasn't been anything crazy that we've experienced. I mean, just minor stuff like wear and tear, clogged toilets, holes on the walls, like nothing that wasn't really replaceable. I think my biggest challenge is, taking my foot off the brakes.
Yeah. When you look forward to next year, what's it look like for you? Where are you going? What's the goal you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's a great question. Now, we're focusing a lot more on the purchasing as well. Again, a lot of my students, they start with the subleasing, but once you get to a certain level, I feel it's going to get to a level for everybody where it only makes sense to buy because we want the appreciation, the depreciation. And now, I'm needing to own a lot more real estate in order to offset other streams of income.
Right.
And so my plan for 2023 is to go into a lot of value add syndications as well as development syndications. Right now we have one in escrow that we're closing next week. We just got into a new JV for another 12 unit. Both of them are here in LA. So up until now, everything has been like single family homes. Moving forward, I see myself going into more doors under the same roof and just, economies of scale and syndicating, bringing in equity partners And I feel like that's the only way I'm going to be able to grow and scale faster.
Yeah. On that 12, is the intent to manage it, to operate as a 12, or will there be a short-term basis, or some of those units be short-term?
I would assume, based on the current regulation, this is a property that's next to USC. And with the regulation there, you can only do one unit up on the whole building. So they're going to be mostly long-term and a combination of midterm rentals and only one short-term rental on the property.
Yeah. Thinking back to your childhood, how did that impact, what you do and who you are today?
Yeah, definitely went through a lot of challenges growing up. Went through an environment where at the young age of 7, I was selling drugs with my dad. At 10, we were smuggling people into the border. Then my father passed away when I was 12 from alcohol. Went through a lot of challenges. And I think because I had my my back against the wall where I didn't have anybody to take care of me, because after he passed away, my mother abandoned me. So I feel like for me, that's really what kind of lit some fire under my butt, where it was like, man, it's either, go all in or, you're not going to be able to take care of yourself. So I didn't have the option to have someone else, take care of me. It was like, you got to be all in or things are not going to look pretty. So I feel like that really gave me the motivation to become the person that I become today, with the success that I've created.
So your father passed at 12, your mother left. How in the world did you end up on a path in which we're speaking today versus you being, in a totally different situation?
Definitely role models and mentors. I had my first mentor, Mr. Parcell. He was my 7th grade teacher, and he knew all the different challenges that I had been experiencing. And one day he came down and just kneeled and got to my eye level, and he knew everything I was going through. And he said, Jorge, you don't have to repeat the same patterns. You don't have to be a product of your environment. He said, you have the ability to change not just your life, but to set a new standard for your younger siblings. He said, and you can change the world. And I believed it. Because up until then, I thought that my life could only be a reflection of what it had been like. I didn't know that it was possible to completely change your life. So that just opened up, it was a paradigm shift. And from then on, I just seeked, different role models and different mentors, people that inspired me. And it just allowed me to see that I could create something different for myself.
Are you the oldest?
I'm actually the youngest. So when I was 12, my sister was 14 pregnant. Then my brother was 16. My other sister was 18. They all had kids. Out of all my 9 brothers and sisters, nobody graduated high school except me. Again, we all just grew up in these environments, smuggling people, drugs. We had a brother that passed away due to gang-related stuff when I was like 5. That was my first funeral. So definitely a lot of challenges, but I believe that ultimately what allows us to thrive is if we change the story. If we change our perception of the story growing up. I could have said, you know what, because I experienced all these things, I'm a loser and I'm drinking and I'm in drugs. And that's how I was. A lot of the friends that I grew up with in junior high and high school ended up like dead, in jail, or really messed up in drugs. I feel that I'm very blessed to, be on this podcast and that I was able to change my life. So I hope that it serves as inspiration for anybody that's going through some difficult or challenging times today.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible story. It's unique that you're here, because statistically you shouldn't be, right? It's unique that you've got a teacher through their words said something and you believed it, and it sounded like that was the genesis of a whole new life.
Yeah, and then of course, in my mid-20s, I'm 35 now, but for the last 10 years, I've personally invested hundreds of thousands going into events like Tony Robbins and, just a lot of personal development over the years. And of course, that changes your life, right? You're able to see through the work of other people what's possible. My parents technically were entrepreneurs, but everything they did was illegal. And my dad was in and out of jail. So through my new mentors, right, over the last 10 years, I've just learned what was possible and how to do things in a way where you're actually changing people's lives and building a business as a reflection of that. So been very blessed.
No, it's incredible. Let's do this. I want to move on to the final segment, what I call for impact. Your favorite quote: if you don't build your empire, somebody else will hire you to help build theirs. Tony Gaskins said it. What about that? It connects with you most?
As a kid, I didn't even know that entrepreneurship was an option. I always felt like I was dumb and had bad grades, never did well. Teachers always told me that I would never amount to anything. And then I learned, now looking back, I'm like, wow, they were just training us to essentially be like obedient slaves and be a part of the workforce and work from 20 to 65 while giving up half of your income to taxes. And so for me, that it's that we all have the opportunity to build a business if we choose to. And if you don't, then you're going to build someone else's.
Yeah. What do you think holds most investors back from hitting their personal next level? Mindset is always the bottleneck that keeps an entrepreneur, because I believe there's no such thing as business problems, only personal problems. There's no such thing as marriage problems, only personal problems. So when you work through your own limiting beliefs or whatever it is that's holding you back, then that's a reflection of everything external. Outside of real estate, what are you most passionate about?
Just personal development, like becoming the greatest version of myself in every aspect, continuously working on my health, my relationships as a father, as a husband, as a role model, as a brother, as a son, just continuously evolving and growing. Like Tony Robbins says, at any given time, you're either growing or dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your favorite way to make an impact in the community?
My favorite way to make an impact in the community is to help people break through those limiting beliefs that have been keeping them playing small, so that now they too can become the greatest version of themselves.
Yeah. We launched the Real Grit Vault earlier this year. It's a collection of resources available to our listeners. And I understand you've got a contribution to make to the vault. Maybe share a little about that.
Yeah. So over the years, we've put together a really awesome furniture list. So it's an Excel document with all the links to the furniture, appliances, decor, supplies, makes it super easy to plug and play and to use that for your own short-term rentals. So yes. I'm going to be contributing that to the vault.
Well, Jorge, we appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody can get that at www.realgritvault.com. Jorge, it's a wonderful story. And you're an inspiration for what you've gone through and to be able to be here today. And you're in a unique business. You've obviously got this thing chugging along and dialed in a system. And I understand you help share and provide guidance to others as it relates to short-term rentals. So maybe tell folks a little about that, and then where can they find it? Where can they follow you? Where can they connect?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Instagram at the Jorge Contreras. And literally all I talk about is short-term rentals, whether it's subleasing or purchasing. So you guys will find a lot of great resources there for anybody that wants to go into this strategy.
That's terrific. We'll make sure we get that link in the show notes below for everybody. Jorge, I appreciate your time to come on. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. I'm Neil Timmins. For everybody here at Real Grit, I'm reminding you that real estate requires real grit. See you next time. What if I told you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. That's www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. And I'll see you in the challenge. If you like our content and want more, you can access it at realgritpodcast.com. You hear it guest after guest. Instinctively, you already know it. But let me call it out. The most expensive action is inaction. The real estate market is full of opportunities. You just need to uncover them. You can build a business that lasts for years, makes monumental impact in the lives of those that you love. It's not just about business, but about the freedom you get because of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I believe that partnering is essential. In fact, I partner with hardworking investors all the time. The point is that you can get a lot further with the right partner. Let me say it again, the right partner. If you've ever thought about partnering with anyone, or if you have a partner now, I encourage you to download my free Partner and Profit Guide, which includes the top 5 must-answer questions to evaluate a profitable partnership. You can find it at www.legacyimpactpartners.com. I'll see you in the next episode.